There's been a lot of talk about the lack of diversity in the fashion industry. Both models and designers of color are historically underrepresented.
Now, despite these realities, our next guest says many are building brands and garnering valuable industry buzz. Here to tell us how is writer and market editor for Fashionista.com, Kibwe Chase-Marshall.
Hi, guys.
Joining us.
Hi,
Hey
Kibwe.
there.
Guess who's back?
That's right.
Kibwe's back.
And better than ever.
You know?
With denim on denim.
Denim on
You're
denim.
So on track.
It is. It's important right now. Denim and denim on top, on bottom, together in polka dots.
Oh, you got that?
Okay. In polka dots.
All right.
All right. Well, let's talk about one of the other things that should be on trend.
Yeah.
Because Beth Ann Hardison, she's a fashion, of course, you know her.
Icon.
Fashion icon, activist, everything. And she was just on our show yesterday talking about the lack of diversity in the fashion industry. But in such a quote-unquote progressive industry, why is this still a problem?
Well, fashion is progressive in terms of those who work in the industry, but it is a profit-driven industry. It's not here to make lives better. It's here to maybe make people beautiful or feel beautiful. And as a result, when profit becomes the ultimate objective, sometimes ethics suffer. And at this point, I think, especially this season, many in the industry are starting to take this industry to task for the ways in which specifically people of African descent remain underrepresented, of course, on the runway, because that's something you can see and discern, but more sort of shockingly within the design studio.
That's true. So out of the 270 plus runway shows at presentations, there are only 22 black designers showcasing. That's a tenth.
Yeah, and I don't want to in any way infer that the industry organizations are in any way working toward those statistics, but it is something that the industry needs to take note of and think about what causes designers to struggle and maybe shudder before they get to the point at which they can show during Fashion Week.
Well, explain there are a long list of Asian designers who are doing remarkably well. Everyone from Jason Wu to Prabal to Derek Lam, et cetera, et cetera. Why are African-American designers and designers of African descent not having similar success?
It's due to an intersection of several challenges. And it's something that Robin Givhan, in a piece that she wrote in 2006 for the Washington Post, really outlined quite comprehensively. So if you consider things like lack of influential networking in the industry, lack of access to the sort of capital that allows someone to launch a business full throttle out of the gates, those factors, as well as perhaps lack of just cultural sort of comfort within design industry, can cause a lot of black designers to maybe make some unwise business decisions.
Gotcha.
But I'm really excited because this season we have really positive news. We have a lot of young black designers showing within New York Fashion Week and also getting a lot of buzz from industry arbiters of what's now and what's cool and what's happening. So it's a time actually in regard to designers to be really excited because it looks like some black designers are stimulating change on their own.
Well, let's talk about one of the designers. We were just here with Mimi.
Yeah.
What do you think she's doing right? She's been very successful in her ventures.
Well, I think one of the things that Mimi is doing correctly aesthetically is bringing very unique and signature aesthetics to her clothing, and that allows her brand to differentiate from others. So she isn't just saying this is cool or this is chic, she's saying this is Mimi. And that's really, I think, a very important distinction that more designers...
She has a definitive voice.
She has a definitive aesthetic that you can differentiate from other designers. And it's a very important thing in terms of having a business that's internationally scalable.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other designers. I know you've spotlighted several designers, 3 that you mentioned specifically. Let's break these down to us, and why are they getting it right?
Okay, well, I picked 3 designers who have shown this season during Fashion Week, who I think bring 3 unique narratives to this discussion.
Charles Harbison, that's who I need to be on the lookout
Charles
for.
Harbison
He should be dressing.
is, I have to say, a name to know right now.
Really?
So Charles Harbison is an alum of the Michael Kors Design Studio, Billy Reed's Design Studio, and Luca Luca's Design Studio. So he's really cut his teeth in some really elevated environments. He's an American sportswear master. You can see here his reefer coat, color blocked from his first collection, and here his foray into some more exuberant print and pattern mixing for spring 2014. He's really poised to become a big-time player in the American sportswear sort of sector of the design industry. And those are big shoes to fill, and he seems like the guy that can do it.
Okay, so what about Shane Oliver? Because I know that a lot of people look at him as very inventive in some of the styles that he brings in Hood by Air.
Yeah. Now, I love that Shane sort of, to me, is the enfant terrible. He's the wild child.
What? Bring a little French to the house.
You know, we're international here. He's the wild child that is bringing both his street savvy swagger and his knowledge of art and contemporary culture and intersections with music industry to this brilliant collection, Hood by Air, that is loved by A$AP Rocky and Rihanna.
Ricardo Tisci.
And Ricardo Tisci and Nike, who did a collaboration with him for shoes for this presentation that occurred 2 days ago. I mean, he really is pulling people from so many different walks together in an aesthetic lane that he and his friends have defined as ghetto gothic.
Ghetto gothic.
Yes,
I love that term.
It's this really cool hybrid of sort of emo, sort of, you know, mystical imagery with then the urban energy that is so intrinsic to kids that grow up in New York like Shane.
Okay.
And let's talk about designer Mackie O, Nigerian-born.
Yeah. Now, when I was compiling this list, I wanted to make sure that we sort of as well spoke to designers of African descent that we're showing in New York, and as well to some of the really brilliant female designers that are showing.
She actually won a Rise Fashion Designer of the Year last year.
And well deserved.
So we called it first.
And
Go
well
ahead.
deserved. As you are, she's a Naija native.
She sure is.
And she really brings a very cool element of traditional craft, indigo dyeing, to her work, but it is still sort of up to date, contemporary. So it isn't of the Ankara world. It is fully sort of embracing the trends of young metropolitan people in capitals internationally.
Well, give us a little inside scoop on how designers, if they're not fortunate enough to, you know, perform or show under the big tent in Fashion Week, how can they also make waves in the industry?
So I think there's some myths that I would love to dispel. First of all, showing in the tents is an accomplishment, but it's not necessarily the accomplishment it used to be.
Not anymore. Have you seen the tents?
Well, not to knock the tents, literally, but many very influential young designers deliberately choose not to show in the tents. There are other venues like Milk Studios or Industria that are very much on the radar of the international fashion set and pull in top-level shows. And so often, designers don't need to set that objective of getting to the tents. I think what they need to do is set the objective of getting onto the official New York Fashion Week calendar. Because that's how the international press and the international buying community know you're showing, and they can make the effort to attend your show. If not attend your show, look for your looks when they go live online.
Okay. And real quick, I got to ask this. You say get on the calendar. Is there a quick tip on how to get on the calendar?
If you Google the fashion calendar, you can get directed to how you can register with them each season, twice annually. It's for fall, winter, and spring, summer.
All right, we give it a hook up here on the Rise. I
Yeah.
like that. All
Kibwe
right,
Chase-Marshall, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
You're
Lovely to
fantastic.
swing by.
All right, you're watching Rise Entertainment 360.